I got home from work on a Thursday evening, expecting the usual silence. My name is Derek Latham. I'm 38, and I work in project management for a mid-sized construction company in Boston. I've been married to Vivian Harlow for 9 years. On paper, our life was solid: mortgage, cars, bills, a decent social circle. I'd never been a dramatic guy, never yelled, never caused a scene. I like my routine. She liked that about me. Or at least, that's what I thought. That day had been long, one of those weeks where deadlines pile up and every little thing seems to go wrong. My truck was parked a block away from our condo building when I noticed the mailbox had been tampered with. The little lock bent slightly. I didn't think much of it. Maybe the mailman had been careless. As I stepped into the building and headed up the elevator, I noticed the faint glow of lights in our apartment. Normally, Vivian would be finishing dinner, humming in the kitchen, or complaining about the laundry I forgot to fold. Today, it was quiet. Too quiet. I slid my key into the lock and turned it. The door opened. I froze for a second because the living room wasn't empty. There he was, Malcolm Royce, my colleague from the office. He was lounging on our sofa like he owned the place. Vivian was sitting on the armchair beside him, her legs crossed, laughing at something he said. For a moment, I just stood there. My mind was racing, heart pounding, chest tight. I hadn't expected this. Not like this. I didn't need proof. I didn't need confrontation. The sight alone told me everything I needed to know. The subtle touches, the way she leaned into him, the way he smirked. This wasn't a one-time mistake. I closed the door gently behind me, making sure it didn't squeak. I wanted to watch. I wanted to see if my brain had betrayed me, if maybe I was imagining it. But the scene was undeniable. They were too comfortable, too casual, as if my existence didn't matter. At first, I felt the familiar surge of anger, the instinct to yell, to throw something, to confront him and her and demand an explanation. But then, a strange calm washed over me. I realized something. My power wasn't in shouting or accusing. It was in knowing exactly what I was going to do next. I left the apartment quietly, walked down the hall, and went to my truck. My hands were steady, even as my mind replayed the scene. I didn't call anyone yet. I didn't reach for my phone. I sat there for a while, thinking, not about revenge in the childish sense, not about dramatics, about clarity, about control, about dignity. I knew one thing immediately. Malcolm Royce had no idea who he was dealing with. He saw me as a colleague, maybe a quiet guy, maybe an easy target. That perception was about to change. I went back inside, as if I were just returning from errands. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I opened the kitchen drawer, grabbed the set of car keys for our second vehicle, the one Vivian often took for weekend trips, and placed them in my coat pocket. I did it deliberately, silently, with a calmness that I knew would make a bigger statement than yelling ever could. I went into the living room. Malcolm looked up, startled. Vivian turned, her laughter dying mid-sentence. "Derek," she said, voice trembling slightly, not with fear, but irritation. I said nothing. I just stood there calm. Malcolm fumbled for words. I could see his confidence crumbling already. I walked over to the sofa, sat down, and for the first time really looked at him. I didn't need to raise my voice. My gaze alone did the work. Calm, controlled, precise. "You're in my house," I said finally, my tone even. "Do you understand that?" Malcolm stammered. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean?" I echoed. "You didn't mean to? That's your explanation." He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. "No, I'm not interested in excuses. I'm interested in clarity." I left the room, walked into the hallway, and turned the corner. Malcolm followed, trying to intercept, but I was already 2 steps ahead. I grabbed his briefcase from the floor where he'd left it, swung it lightly, and handed it back to him. "Leave," I said. "Now." Malcolm hesitated, realizing this wasn't a joke. This wasn't some argument he could talk his way out of. His bravado was gone. Vivian was staring at the floor, silent, unready for what I'd decided. "I'll make this simple," I continued. "You're in my home. You're in my wife's life, which she mismanaged. But make no mistake, you've stepped into territory you cannot walk away from unscathed. You leave. You don't come back. You don't call. You don't text. Understood?" Malcolm swallowed hard. "Yes." I nodded once. That was enough. I didn't need to say more. I walked past him, down the hallway, toward the kitchen. Vivian didn't move. She couldn't. The realization of what I had done, what I had taken control of, was hitting her. I opened the fridge, poured myself a glass of water, and drank it slowly. Every sip a reminder that I wasn't reacting in anger. I was acting with purpose. Then I turned to her. "You have choices now," I said. "You can fix what you've broken, or you can continue down the path you've chosen." She said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't need to. I simply went to my bedroom, grabbed a small gym bag, packed a few essentials, and left the apartment. Not running, not panicking, just stepping out in control, taking space that was mine. I drove to a friend's house, someone I trust, someone who would let me think without interruption. I didn't call her. I didn't call Malcolm. I needed time, clarity, calm. By the time I returned the next day, everything had changed. Malcolm hadn't come back. Vivian hadn't spoken. The tension was thick, palpable. I knew she had finally realized something, that I wasn't someone to be taken lightly, that my patience and loyalty had limits, and that crossing those limits came with consequences. In the following weeks, I maintained my calm, stayed consistent, and kept the household in order without her realizing that the balance had shifted. I didn't chase her. I didn't plead. I simply existed with dignity, silently letting my actions communicate what words could not. And gradually, the message sank in. Malcolm never returned. Vivian began to act differently, not out of love, but out of recognition that her choices had consequences she hadn't anticipated. I had regained my power, not through force, but through clarity and control. Sometimes you don't need a confrontation, a fight, or drama. Sometimes all it takes is calm, deliberate action, and letting the people around you see who you really are. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to cry. I didn't need to threaten. The house, the routines, my dignity. They spoke louder than anything I could say. That's what Thursday taught me. That's what stepping into clarity taught me. And that's why, when I think back to that evening, I don't remember the anger. I remember the calm and the knowledge that I had finally reclaimed what was mine: respect, control, and a quiet sense of victory over the chaos that tried to define me.